Namaste. Wishing everyone a very happy and prosperous new year. Welcome to the session. The title of today's talk is Understanding Yoga and Salutogenesis. Our guest speaker is Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani. I'll give a brief introduction for our esteemed guest. Yogacharya Dr. Anand Balayogi Bhavanani is Director of the Institute of Salutogenesis and Complementary Medicine and Professor of Yoga Therapy at the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth University, Pondicherry. A recipient of the coveted doctorate in yoga from S. Vyasa Yoga University, he is chairman of the International Center for Yoga Education and Research at Anandashram, Pondicherry, and Yoganjali Natyalayam, the premier institute of yoga and Carnatic music and Bharatnatyam in Pondicherry. He is son and successor of the internationally acclaimed yoga team of Yog Maharshi, Dr. Swami Geetanand Giri Guru Maharaj, and Yogacharini Kalaimamani Ammaji, Srimati Meenakshi Devi Bhavanani. Dr. Anand is a gold medalist in medical studies, MBBS, with postgraduate diplomas in both family health as well as yoga, and the advanced diploma in yoga under his illustrious parents. A fellow of the Indian Academy of Yoga, he has authored 19 DVDs and 28 books and 34 compilations on yoga, as well as published more than 300 papers, compilations, and abstracts on yoga and yoga research in national and international journals. In addition, he is a classical Indian vocalist, percussionist, music composer, and choreographer of Indian classical dance. Namaskar, Anand sir. Welcome. It's truly an honor to have you with us on the Yes platform, sir. Look forward to an enlightening session with you. Over to you, sir.
Namaskaram. Thank you so much, Arunima. And I would like to start off by offering my gratitude at the feet of a very beloved mentor, Professor Ramesh Bijlani, sir, who has been an inspiration for me for many, many decades, ever since I was a small kid. And to have sir with us and enable me to give this talk today is truly a blessing. I'm going to start sharing the screen, and hopefully it is a full screen.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Today I'm going to explore the topic Understanding Salutogenesis and Yoga. Now, for many people, the term salutogenesis is relatively new because we are more familiar with the term pathogenesis rather than salutogenesis. And this is why we at Pondicherry in the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, deemed to be medical university, ranked 68 in the All India ranking by the Government of India, we have an Institute of Salutogenesis and Complementary Medicine having two schools, a school for yoga therapy and a school for music therapy. So when we talk about salutogenesis, we wish to move from pathogenesis, a focus on disease, towards salutogenesis, a focus on health and wellness. And this is our journey at SBB in Pondicherry. Now, for a long time, we have had something called alternative medicine. And one of the issues with the term alternative is it is confrontationalist, and immediately there's antagonism because alternate means it is either you or me. And so there's always duality, there's always friction and antagonism. This then has grown into the term complementary, where we can work together. So rather than you or me, we can become you and me. And this is something which is much easier to work with. But then, of course, the need of the hour is integrative medical approach, where it is not you or me, it is not you and me, but it is us. And I would like to acknowledge that many years ago, I believe it's nearly 20 years ago, Dr. Bijlani sir started an integrative clinic at AIMS while he was head of physiology. So, I am talking about the need of the hour now. He made it happen 20 years ago. And the World Health Organization has woken up to this finally from a deep slumber. And they now have a term TCI medicine, which is traditional, complementary, and integrative. And trust me, this is exactly what yoga is. It is traditional, it is complementary, it is integrative. Now, health is a dynamic continuum. It is not a mere state to be attained and maintained. And this is why the moment we define health as a state, we are forgetting that the continuum is more important than just one part of it. The lowest point on the continuum, well, death, mortality. The highest point, a conceptual awareness of immortality. So we have Mrityorma Amritangamaya. And that is why that journey from Mrit, mortality, to Amrit, immortality, is very important. And in between these two extremes lie the state of normal health and disease. So if you ask most people, what do they think is health? Well, the ability to function without hindrance. That is actually what most people define as being healthy. But from an Indian standpoint, health is part of the evolutionary process towards manifesting our innate divinity. It is not just about the physical or the mental or the emotional, but it is about the spiritual evolutionary growth that is our responsibility as a human being. So often we talk of this four-quadrant concept, and Guruji, Dr. Nagendra, often talks about this, where you have these four quadrants. Quadrant 3, which is the negative on any graph, is the region of ill health, where sickness, illness, and a lower animal tendency manifests more. But quadrant 1 is where we want to grow. It is plus in the graph paper, where we have the region of normal health, and we want to manifest our humaneness and grow into manifesting our divinity. The concept of the superhuman being that has been brought out so much by our Indian culture, and especially Sri Aurobindo and the mother also, where you grow into your divinity, not just be on the brink of disaster, where most people seem to exist most of the time. Now, many thousands of years ago, Aristotle describes Eudaimonia as a life that is well lived, where you fulfill your ultimate purpose and that which has meaning. And eudaimonic happiness has been described as a steadfast, abiding contentment, santosha, or nitya tripta, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. And it is marked by flourishing rather than short-term pleasure seeking. So we want to flourish as a human being, not just have short-term pleasure. And this again can be elaborated by the self-actualization, self-realization, and transcendence described in the hierarchy of needs by Abraham Maslow and others in the humanistic psychology scheme of things. The Japanese have the concept of ikigai, and of course, Indian tradition, swadharma. And Krishna reminds us in the Bhagavad Gita, better to live your dharma, however low, high, dangerous, or non-dangerous it is, rather than trying to live somebody else's dharma, how much ever better it may seem. Live your dharma even at the cost of death. That is his message, Swadharma. And all of these, be it Eudaimonia, self-actualization, Ikigai, Swadharma, are trying to help us attain a sense of coherence. And I'm going to be talking about this, which is essential for salutogenic well-being. So what is salutogenesis? Well, about 3-4 decades ago, Aaron Antonovsky, a social scientist from Israel, he came upon this concept and developed it, where salus, which is from Latin meaning health, salutarius, for example, that we use, and genesis that comes from Greek. So Greek and Latin combination, salus plus genesis, becomes salutogenesis, which in combination is the sources of health. And he, in his studies, showed us that relatively unstressed people are more resistant to illness than those who are more stressed. Today, we understand under psychoneuroimmunology, and in COVID, we experience the impact, the negative impact of stress on immune system and how we became more vulnerable to the virus. So he proposed that the experience of well-being is based on a sense of coherence. So here, my thought as a medical professional is, can we communicate with our patients in patient care through our words and actions that these concepts come alive and not just focus on, you have such and such disease, this is the treatment we are going to give you, and these are the 5-year survival rates. Can we focus on health, wellness? Because then the health promoting aspects of healing will start to manifest. And for this, we need to be a friend and guide, help them comprehend life better. And for this to happen, we truly need to know the person better, not just the disease they have. And William Osler, the father of modern medicine, said, the good physician treats the disease, the great physician treats the person who has the disease. And even we have forgotten what the father of modern medicine has said, and we are focusing on disease, pathogenesis all the time. So the sense of coherence is the heart of salutogenesis. What is it? It is a pervasive, long-lasting, and dynamic feeling of confidence that our internal and external environments are predictable, more or less, and there is high probability that things will work out as well as can be expected. So this is where you see a bit of positive psychology, a bit of humanistic psychology does have correlations with all of this. The sense of coherence has been shown to have positive correlation to perceived health, mental health, and quality of life. There are 3 components to the sense of coherence. The first is cognitive, where we feel my world is understandable. I can understand my world. I understand what I am doing, where I am, all of that. The second is a coping skill. My world is manageable. And the third is a motivational aspect. My world has meaning. So if we feel our life, our world is understandable, manageable, and meaningful, well, we have a strong sense of coherence and definitely will move towards wellness. The lack of coherence moves us towards illness. And in emergency rooms, we see a lot of the loss of sense of coherence and a lot of incoherence where people feel, I cannot understand what is happening, I cannot manage what is happening, and there is no purpose in me staying alive. This is basically what we find when they lose this coherence, from moving from a sense of coherence into incoherence. It is always useful to contrast salutogenesis and pathogenesis. So pathogenesis focuses on disease, salutogenesis on health. Pathogenesis tries to avoid the problem and is reactive. You just want the absence of disease, that's all. You have sinusitis, get rid of sinusitis, we are fine. That is pathogenesis. How do you manifest your potential? That is salutogenesis. And we want to be proactive, manifest the presence of health. Pathogenesis looks at pain and loss and tries to mitigate it, but salutogenesis is looking at gain and growth, whereas pathogenesis enables you to stay alive. Salutogenesis makes life worth living. It enables you to live life fully. So now if you look at the illness-wellness continuum, you'll see that the treatment paradigm at the bottom is the pathogenic part. So we are focusing on disability, symptoms, and signs and trying to mitigate it. But if you look at the wellness paradigm, which is salutogenesis, it does not negate pathogenesis. And I would like to reiterate this. Salutogenesis does not negate pathogenesis. It understands pathogenesis, but it is pathogenesis plus. And so we are looking at disability, signs and symptoms, but we are looking at awareness, education, growth, and moving towards a high level of wellness. And this is why salutogenesis is something which is a paradigm shift I'm going to suggest. Aaron Antonovsky proposed the experience of well-being is based on this sense of coherence. But then, is it enough if you have it? No. You want your patients, you want your clients, you want your students, you want people in society to have it, and to communicate it with them in such a way that these aspects come alive has been termed a sense for coherence. So sense of coherence and a sense for coherence. Can you communicate it and manifest it in others? And it is only there that the health promoting aspects of healing start to manifest. And this is why it has been suggested as a new healthcare system, that we focus on healing. And what is healing? The process of recovery, repair, renewal, reintegration, contributing to the individual's physical, mental, social, and spiritual health and well-being. That is what we want, not cure. Modern medicine is always focused on curing somebody. We have forgotten healing. And we have moved from a healthcare system to a disease care system. And as someone joked at Kaivalyadhamma recently, healthcare has become a health scare. We are scaring people. Healthcare to health scare was actually a very scary joke that they made during the conference. Now, healing and cure are both essential. Both are complementary. You don't have to say, oh, because you are focusing on healing, you are neglecting curing. No. Cure plus something is healing. And for this, we need to create what is called optimal healing environment. And I'm going to come to that little later, because if the environment doesn't facilitate healing, we are not going to actually be doing any service to humanity at all. So we all know about stress and how it comes in and creates havoc. Antonovsky has suggested that the stressor that comes in creates a tension in the individual. And depending on how the individual deals with that, they either go on a salutogenic pathway towards positive health, H+, or the pathogenic pathway of breakdown, which is H-. So the same stressor can either make you or break you, depending on how you perceive it and how you respond to it. And this is where the importance of yoga comes in, because yoga enables you to change the way you look at life. The asana, the pranayama, the meditation, that is all secondary. Change in perspective is the highest aspect of yoga. And Patanjali calls it pratipaksha bhavanam. Change in your perspective. So rather than saying this stress is so much, it's going to break me down, this is a challenge given by life to make me a better version of myself. And then that stress becomes your gym called life. And the gym called life makes you a better version. To promote this, we need something, because most people are lacking a sense of coherence. So they go into the breakdown pathway. They don't have resistance resources. Antonovsky has suggested there are generalized resistance resources that you can used to combat the stress. Many people don't have that. There are specific resistance resources which also people lack. And because of the lack of the SOC, the GRR and SRR, they go down the breakdown pathogenic pathway. But if you can give them general resistance resources, this is where yoga comes in. Because yoga as a system gives you a generalized resistance resource that can be mobilized to manage stress. And yoga as a therapy becomes a specific resistance resource. Somebody has a specific health challenge, you can use specific practices that will help them tide over that challenge and come from negative H minus to H plus positive wellness. So these resistance resources, you can see pathogenesis and death, salutogenesis and total health going into the green. This side you have the red, and in between sort of the color spectrum. The sense of coherence, when you have the general resistance resources, enables you to move the salutogenic. And if you don't have the resource, you have a deficit. General resistance deficits lead down the pathway of pathogenesis. So our suggestion here is yoga as a generalized resistance resource that can help us mitigate the stressful events and move towards health rather than illness. And this is why we need to change the paradigm from our healthcare professionals thinking, what did I do today to treat disease and illness? We have to move towards, what did I do today to promote health and wellness? It is a paradigm shift that has to occur in healthcare if it is to truly be healthcare. Where does yoga fit in? I always use this image because here you have the ancient rishi, you have the modern medical doctor, and well, they have to both communicate, otherwise we cannot have integration. It is interesting that close to 8,400 papers are there on PubMed, the gold standard when you Google yoga therapy. And if you look at that graph in this corner, between 1948 and 2024, you can see it is only in the last 3 decades that there's been this whole spurt of research in yoga. And of course, Bijlani sir, Madan Mohan sir, Guruji Nagendra, Didi Nagaratna have been in the pioneer along with Shavli Telly, Sadhvir, and so many who have made this possible. And today we are churning out yoga research. Whether quality is better, I don't know, but a lot of quantity for sure is there. Now we have salutogenesis, we have this, but what does our tradition have that is already predating all of this? It has the concept of swasth. And swasth is a dynamic state of wholesome wellness, which Sushruta, 600 BC, long time ago, none of us were around in the present form at least, when he gave us this concept. Samadosha sama agdischa samadatu malakriya prasanna atma indriya mana swastya itya bidiyate. Where there has to be a balanced equilibrium, sama of the dosha, the agni, the dhatu. There has to be dynamic elimination, malakriya, of the different toxins, both physical, mental, emotional, and social, that are part of making us a trash bin rather than a human being. And then prasannata. I think one of the things we miss in health is this prasannata, a tranquil contentment that Sushruta has suggested, that the Atma should be prasanna, Indriyas, your senses should be prasanna, and your mana, that chitta, mana, buddhi, ahankara should be prasanna. That prasannata is actually one of the key aspects of health and healing that has been missed. This is a dynamic state of wholesome health. And I may be prejudiced, but I believe yoga is truly the best means to achieve this, because it is a complete system, looks at the physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual aspects of the human being. So coming to yoga as a therapy, we must remember yoga therapy is neither separate nor greater than yoga. And one of our articles that, along with my colleagues at the Yoga Therapy Association, we wrote a few years ago, was the language of yoga therapy. How do you communicate these concepts without diluting them? Because yoga therapy is not just asana therapy. Yoga therapy is not just body work and breath work, it is something more. And this is why the latest definition from the IAYT is yoga therapy is a professional application of the principles and practices. I am so happy they have not just talked about asana. The principles of yoga are part of yoga therapy, not just the practices. And what are we trying to promote? Health and well-being, not just mitigate disease. This is salutogenesis. Within a therapeutic relationship that includes personalized assessment, goal setting, lifestyle management, and yoga practices for individuals or small groups. So you can see that there's a lot of salutogenesis coming into the way the yoga therapy movement is going forward. But this needs a leap upstream. Pathogenic orientation, where we are wanting better medical interventions, cure the chronic disease. There's a lot of paternalism and entitlement. And we are always looking at fixing part of the system. I remember when my father was in Apollo Hospital, the year he left the body. And when I went into the ICU, the kidney specialist was just looking at the kidney. The heart specialist was just looking at the heart. The lung specialist was only looking at the lungs. And I'm like, none of them are looking at the whole human being who's lying there in the ICU. And this is one of the reasons I decided not to go into specialization and super specialization, because I didn't want to miss the woods for the trees. I didn't want to miss the fact we are one dynamic, wholesome human being. And this is where salutogenesis improves the natural and built environment. It manifests health. There's a culture of active health, and you develop what are called health assets, not just financial assets. People always want financial assets. Health asset development is part of salutogenesis. Again, when we look at yoga therapy in this context, yoga therapy looks at body, mind, and spirit. And a very beautiful diagram from indeedcare.com gives this in a nice summary. At the bodily level, the physical level, you restore function and you create healing. These are two important things at the bodily level. At the mind level, healing along with reduction in suffering. You want to mitigate dukkha. You want to help the person move from dukkha to sukha. That is very much part of what we want to do in yoga and yoga therapy. And at the spirit level, reduce the suffering and create community. So restore function, create healing, reduce suffering, create community. All of this is part of salutogenesis, because healing is multifactorial. It requires lifestyle. It requires change in attitude. It requires relaxation. And we must never forget it requires breathing. Another great influence in my life has been Sri Deshikachar. And once he was asked about yoga and yoga therapy, he said, if you can breathe, you can do yoga. So as long as the breath is moving in you, you can do yoga. And we have done this in a lot of ICUs, post-op, open heart surgery. The next day, we go in and we help the person to start breathing mindfully. So important to change what is happening and move from disease to ease, from dukkha to sukha. And this is why this model that has been developing over decades. First, it was the biological model, then biopsychological model, and then biopsychosocial model. And now we have biopsychosocial and spiritual model, which is actually what yoga is all about. But it's taken us a long time to get the modern words and images for it. And if you look at the biological level, yoga has been proven to help us. Physical health, enhance immune and stress response, reduce inflammation, and even change your genetic expression, what we call, the epigenetics is very much part of what yoga can do biologically. Psychologically, it helps you with metacognition. Vairagya in yoga is metacognition. Self-regulation, compassion for self and others, builds resilience and develops coping skills. Socially, what does it do? Enhances quality of life, social function, levels of acceptance. What is acceptance? Ishvara Pranidhana. Enhanced connections and relationships with others. And when all of this comes together, remember the biggest circle that encompasses biological, psychological, and social is the spiritual. Spiritual is not separate. And it helps cultivate awareness and strengthens the connection to meaning and purpose. This Anne Mary in Australia who developed this image for her yoga for better health. I really thanked her when she did this a few years ago. I said, you have given me an amazing image for all my PPTs now, because it describes exactly what yoga is doing. Now, coming to the World Health Organization, they talk of physical, social, and mental well-being. Spiritual sort of hides in the corner because though they have a lot of articles, lot of discussions, still we are retaining the 1940 something definition, which does not have the word spiritual in it. And I don't know when they're going to do that, but there's a lot of inclusion of spiritual. So I say that WHO does look at physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being. But this has already happened thousands of years ago with Maharishi Patanjali. He has given us yama and niyama that enhance the social dimension of health. He has given us asana pranayama that enhance physiological dimension of health. Pratyahara, sensory withdrawal or withdrawal for the senses, which is better. And one-pointed focus is enhancing the mental domain of health. And dhyana and samadhi for the spiritual domain. So already Maharishi Patanjali in his Ashtanga Yoga is giving us tools with which these 4 dimensions that WHO now talks about, well, we can work towards them. Now, my colleague at ISCM, Dr. Meena, in one of her talks recently, had correlated this very beautifully. So I share this image from a table created by her that compares the 3 shariras, the 3 bodies, the gross, subtle, and causal, with the Panchakosha. And this is common, the Stula with the Annamaya, Sukshma with Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Karana with Anandamaya is a common one. But to also look at it, that asana and pranayama at the gross body level, yama niyama, pratyahara, dharana at the subtle, and dhyana samadhi at the causal. This is another correlation. And in salutogenesis, asana pranayama enhance the manageability domain. You remember there were 3 parts: comprehensibility, manageability, and meaningfulness. Well, manageability, asana pranayama help you manage things better. Yama niyama, pratyahara, dharana enable you to comprehend things better. And dhyana and samadhi enhance the meaning and purpose. So we can see the same Ashtanga Yoga model can actually be correlated with the 3 components of the sense of coherence, which is the heart of salutogenesis. Now, going back to another amazing slide by Sadhbir Khalsa, where again he talks of even the practices, postures, breathing, relaxation, meditation, working on 4 domains: fitness, self-regulation, awareness, and spirituality. And what do they do? Well, this slide could be one total 45-minute lecture, but what do? They overall enhance the global human functionality, physical mental health improvement, physical mental emotional performance improvement, positive behavioral change. Yoga as a behavioral modification is another way it can be brought forth. Social responsibility, values and relationships are enhanced. Quality of life is enhanced. Life purpose and meaning is enhanced, and spirituality is enhanced. So what we see is that the whole of yoga as Ashtanga is enabling us to move towards that goal of salutogenesis. And this is where in yoga therapy, we use the four-pronged approach. Heya, which is looking at the problem. Hetu, the cause of the problem. Hana, which is the goal. And Upaya, the tools that help you get to the goal. And this can again be correlated. That comprehensibility, you want to understand what is happening when you have an illness. Well, you understand the symptoms of the disease, you try to analyze the root cause and understand the treatment. All of this is part of the comprehensibility, part of salutogenesis in yoga therapy. The manageability part is where clarity of what do they want, goal setting. Remember, it is in the definition of yoga therapy now. Motivate to follow the concepts and practices regularly. And the upaya, the tools to empower the care seeker, giving them different techniques as they need, and looking for meaning and purpose in the approach as a care provider. We are not just giving them the technique, but helping them look for meaning and purpose. And this is how these concepts, which seem utopian, seem hypothetical, they can actually come into your day-to-day yoga practice, both as a yoga instructor and as a yoga therapist. Where does this all come down at our mind-body level? Well, psychoneuroimmunology. And that is why psychoneuroimmunology gives us a modern understanding of what the yogis called Adi Vyadi. And so we all have stress. It could come from major life events, environmental stress, trauma and abuse. And once you perceive stress, and this is why I always highlight this part, because the whole stress response depends on this first part, which is your perception of stress. Because once you have perceived something as stressful, you have lost control over the stress response after that. Because then what happens, your whole physiological cascade comes in, and chronic stress leads to what is called allostatic load, and that leads to disease. Now, some years ago, a review by Sengupta had this cascade, and I keep this image because it is a very beautiful cascade of stress. Stress at the top, disease at the bottom. Adi at the top, Vyadi at the bottom. And if you look at all of these pathways, he has asterisks there. The stars that are seen are where yoga has been documented to help mitigate the stress response. And there are a huge number of stars in that sky. So what I want to propose here is that yoga as both a vaccine against stress that has not yet come, and as an antidote to stress that has manifested. So yoga can be both a vaccine and an antidote depending on whether stress has yet manifested or not. And studies by Streeter have shown the same thing. They showed that there is a reduction in the allostatic load through the yoga practice. Again, how? We have seen it again and again. Decrease the sympathetic, enhance the parasympathetic, and correct the underactivity of GABA. GABA is the most important inhibitory neurotransmitter, and you can actually correct its underactivity with yoga practices. So these have been documented again. And this is why this balance, we have seesaw that is there in parks. Nowadays, it's not there. But, have stress and relaxation, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. What does sympathetic do? Switches on your stress response, retards rehabilitation, and delays healing. So even if nothing else, yoga's greatest contribution to healthcare is a non-pharmacological method of relaxation that can be done by the patient themselves. This is the greatest contribution and cost effective. Because relaxation is the key to healing. We have the stress response. The opposite is the relaxation response. And if the relaxation response is educed, you then promote what is called healing response. So stress to relaxation, relaxation facilitates the healing response. And again, I feel this is yoga's greatest contribution to modern healthcare. Now, yoga is not just asana. Yoga is a whole lifestyle where you look at your physical activities, the achar. You look at your thought process, the vichar. You look at your food habits, ahar. You look at the vihar. How do you choose to relax? And do you just go out and smoke for a relaxation? Do you go and watch a horror movie to relax? Well, that's not going to really relax you. And then we ever have healthy relationships. Now, I had mentioned the optimal healing environment, and in 2004, the Samuli Institute described this. And they described 4 domains. Internal domain, which is a sense of personal wholesomeness. Interpersonal domain, you cultivate healing relationships. The behavioral domain, adoption and practice of healthy lifestyles. And the external domain, healing spaces and ecological sustainability. Now, yoga fits into all 4 of these. It's rare to find something that can fit into all 4. Yoga promotes a sense of personal wholesomeness. It helps you cultivate healing relationships, helps you adopt and practice healthy lifestyle, and is ecologically sound. The yogic, sattvic ambience that, we want to develop. And that is why our gurukulas, our ashrams were optimal healing environments till in modern times they have become 5-star hotels. And then it becomes something else. But the traditional ashrams and gurukulas have always been optimal healing environments. Now, again, I would like to, before I end, talk a little bit about lifestyle choices, because poor lifestyle choices are the key contributor in chronic disease. And today, the NCDs are the biggest issue, the non-communicable diseases which are chronic. And we lack the behavioral skills to do what we need to do. We know what we need to do, but we don't have the behavioral skill to do it. And that is why nutritional counseling, exercise training, stress management, all of this can come in yoga. And it is shown that if you participate in a comprehensive lifestyle modification program, your improvements are going to be better. But the problem is we human beings are lazy. And we are unwilling to change our lifestyle. We are willing to take any number of drugs, but change lifestyle, not me. And one of my friends, a diabetologist, had this conversation that I like to share. And he said, the patient comes to him, a young guy, and he says, how are my glucose numbers? Well, you have pre-diabetes and, you're going to have to make lifestyle changes. So he says, okay, what can I do? The doctor says, let's start lifestyle changes, diet, exercise. And the patient says, you mean to say the best way to prevent diabetes is to live like I already have it? And the doctor says, well, sort of. And so the patient, this is not a patient, it's a to-be patient. Why should I want to prevent diabetes? Let it come when it comes and I'll take the medicine when it comes. This is a typical conversation between doctors and patients. That people just don't want to adopt lifestyle changes. They want to wait till the dam bursts and then try to find ways to reduce the flooding. So we need to focus on wholesomeness and salutogenesis. We need to move mindfully and consciously from dukkha to sukha. And this is what we have been doing for the past 15 years in our medical university, where about 110,000 patients have benefited from the yoga therapy. We have courses for the yoga therapists from diploma up to PhD, lot of publication, and all our medical, dental, nursing students are getting yoga as part of the training in our university. They have a yoga Vyasa program towards salutogenesis, the IDY programs with Ayush. And here you can see during COVID, our yoga instructors were COVID warriors going in with the PPE kit to provide yoga to the patients who were there, working with special children, going right from the MRD up to the ICU, and rehabilitation work in neurosurgery, helping patients recover faster by adopting this same paradigm. working again in the community, building community, senior citizens, school children, children with special needs. And here you can see a nice one from our MBBS students where they were getting a yoga training program right in the classroom. Because, if you tell them come to the center, they will not come. Go into the classroom, catch them for the 15, 20 minutes. And again, same thing in our medical conferences. You see all our professors and medical personnel, they cannot escape. We get right into the conferences, and so everybody gets it. Nursing, as soon as the nursing personnel get the job in our hospital, they get an orientation that includes an orientation to yoga before they even join as a nurse in our hospital. And to quote one of my mentors, Professor Seduraman, who was our vice chancellor, he's been my mentor in general medicine. He made a beautiful statement: becoming whole is what healing is all about. And you again want that sense of wholesomeness. And we offer our gratitude to him at all times. And he suggested a few things. He said, preventive and promotive practices such as yoga and music therapy protect against pathology. And health goes beyond the mere absence of pathology. And he has suggested up to 40% of illnesses have no pathological basis. They are called medically unexplained symptoms, which is where yoga can really, really help people. And lifestyle-based wellness choices maximize positive life experiences, joy, vitality, serenity, happiness, self-actualization, and other qualities make life worth living. This is where I started: Eudaimonia, Ikigai, self-actualization, Swadharma. And he has suggested that yoga therapy is an ancient healing system of integrated mental, physical, and spiritual practices to promote salutogenesis. And so this last slide is introducing you to my beautiful team at the Institute of Salutogenesis. These are our team from the School of Yoga Therapy, School of Music Therapy, and we are the healing dozen that are trying our best to change the paradigm from pathogenesis to salutogenesis. So I would like to thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share and open up to any questions or comments that may be there.
Thank you, Anand sir, for sharing your invaluable insights and knowledge with all of us. This has been a really enlightening session, and we are truly grateful for the opportunity to learn from your expertise, sir. Thank you once again. And as you said, we can check with the participants if they have any questions or they want to share something. Please raise the hand and I'll call out your name. You can unmute yourself and speak up, or you can drop your messages in the chat box. I'll read it out. Please go ahead.
This is the moment where everybody goes silent.
But sir, we do have really beautiful words of appreciation for you, sir. Beautiful session, wonderful session. Thanks a lot.
Namaskar. It was a wonderful talk and a wonderful lesson. And we wish to listen it repeatedly few times so that it can seep into us. Will it be possible for you to share the entire talk with us, with the group?
Yes, sir, we do publish the recording on the Yes Spirituality YouTube channel. I'll just drop the link to that channel in the chat box.
In addition, can we have the name and address of their institute so that the people concerned can contact them?
It will be added in the chat box by Nilachal within a few seconds.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Also, this PowerPoint is available on Academia because everything that I do, I believe it should be copy left. And so it is always on Academia and ResearchGate for people to freely download.
Nilachara Padma Santi.
The website you can type, Nilachal, the sbbu.ac.in/ISCM, where we are, not to beat our own drum, but one of the very few institutes in the whole world where in a medical institution, yoga therapy, music therapy, and salutogenesis have become integrated in all departments. We even have studies of how yoga and music therapy can reduce your stress before a root canal. And that is the type of integrative research that happens before you have a second premolar extraction. Can yogic relaxation and pranayama reduce your pre-op anxiety? Can yoga and music reduce your anxiety before an angioplasty procedure? Yes, we work in that. In neonatal ICU, NICU we call it, neonatal intensive care, can you reduce the pain of the neonates by playing music in the NICU? Our music therapists play music, live music in the NICU, and we have shown a lot of the improvements there also. During immunization, can you reduce parental anxiety? So, a lot of beautiful collaboration. Yes, Jnanadev, I think your hand is up.
I think when you're teaching, my hand is always up because I have something to ask. Sorry. Yes, I think we really loved the whole.
The voice seems to be breaking. The voice seems to be breaking, so I'm not getting a question fully.
Seems to be like so much. If you can put a little bit more light on, as we talked about coherence, I was wondering like closer.
Actually, because we lost, I didn't get the full clarity of the question. You want to know more about the sense of coherence. Is that what it was? I think there's an issue with the net there. We'll come back to that as soon as the net is better.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Now it's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, better? Yes. This is better. Yes.
Yeah, so as we talk about the salutogenesis, which is to reverse, the health damage that we cause to ourselves. And I think when we look at the Patanjali's concept of the ajnana, the ignorance or avidya, which is sort of creating a duality between our heart and head. And that's where we make the choices which leads us towards the problem. And I was wondering if you can put a little bit more light on the heart and head, like what we want to do and what we need to do, what we like to do and what we do, please, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. You see, a sense of coherence is when everything is flowing together. When things are not flowing, it is incoherence. So if your head and your heart are not working together, it is sense of incoherence. And this is why I believe one of the best things we can do in yoga is put ourselves upside down. Because always the head seems to rule the heart. The head seems to rule the heart always. When you do Shirsasana, Sarvangasana, Viparita Karini, or even Padahastasana or Meru Asana, people call it Adho Mukha Shvana, we call it Meru Asana. Your head is below your heart. And the moment your head comes below the heart, there will be a beautiful energy flow that can balance both of them. So just even practically speaking, I feel that more our head comes below the heart, the more there can be harmony, because we are always thinking the intellect is superior to intuition. The intellect is never superior to intuition. Intuition is the highest level of being human being. And, Bishlani sir, many years ago, I was in Delhi for the yoga week. That was a great time. We used to all meet up in Delhi. And he gave a talk about this where he said, the psyche is where it guides you what you should do. But then if you don't do what you are to do, the intellect starts to come in, and then it starts to justify why you shouldn't do what you should do, and then you start to regret it. I think this is how I have taken your lesson, sir. This was about 15 years ago. And I always remind myself of that. At the highest level, the psyche, the intuition, the Anandamaya Kosha is guiding us through the Vijnanamaya Kosha what to do. But the moment it comes down from the Vijnana to the Manomaya, all our emotions, all our reasons why we should not do the right thing come in. And then we end up not doing the right thing, and then we regret it. And I think this is why head below the heart postures, physiologically, physically, it restores your baroreceptor, reflex, and that is very, very important. Hypertension for your cardiovascular health. So I would say that the simplest way, rather than being hypothetical about it, get your head down below your heart whenever you can, and automatically there will start to be a balance between head and heart. We have from Kaushal Pandey, see a hand up there.
Sir, namaste. Recently, I joined the step-by-step program on your suggestion. And thanks for giving such a wonderful concept, sir. And I have heard you several times on YouTube. But what I felt that that sense of coherence, when it start developing, we are not in situation to go to the yoga asana, because I have seen so many people, when they try everything, then they resort to or try to come to the yoga side.
Finally, they come at the end.
And they are not in position to do what we expect to do in therapies. So, sir, what's the way to instill or evoke that sense of coherence in someone who has seen suffering?
It's a very good question, very practical question. Now, yoga therapy doesn't mean standing on your head. Yoga therapy may be as simple as breathing in for 4 counts and breathing out for 4 counts. And as long as you can breathe, you're going to have a change. And even today in the ashram to our group, I was telling, Sukha pranayama that we normally start with is just breathing in for 6, breathing out for 6. Just harmonizing your inhalation and exhalation is going to start to manifest the healing response. So somebody in ICU, post-op, 4 in, 4 out. If they cannot do 4 in, 4 out, we do 2 in, 2 out. But you can start where the person is. Yoga therapy, yoga chikitsa is always starting where the person is and helping them move towards where they can be. You don't start where they have to be, you start where they are. And that is the same principle of learning. Start where the student is and lead them towards where they need to be. So there are a lot of practices, and I believe that if somebody cannot do any of the practices, you can still give them yoga therapy. You can still manifest sense of coherence by your presence. As a therapist, your presence should manifest healing. And so being there with somebody, because I believe that the greatest pandemic on earth today, leave stress, leave COVID, leave depression, is loneliness. I believe that human beings are suffering loneliness today because we have lost connection with each other. And the more we lose connection, the more we are going into dukkha. So the moment somebody who comes to you seeking care and you can give them care, your presence becomes the best present you can give them. So even presence can be therapeutic, words can be therapeutic, a hug, Munna by MBBS, hug can be therapeutic. We forget that. So yoga is not just the technique. Yoga is life. All life is yoga. Sri Aurobindo. So yes, definitely there's always something we can do. So even somebody who cannot move, somebody who's bedridden can do a lot. My mother has been in the bed after her stroke for the last 5 years. But everyone who comes here knows she's in an amazing, beautiful state of mind. Why? You have that relationship. We sing together. Singing together can be great healing. And that is why bhajans, mantra chanting, reading, this can all be therapeutic. This is all yoga. This is all yoga. So yoga, let's not put yoga in that box of only the technique, because that is what the modern yoga industry has done. The modern yoga industry has mutilated yoga. I don't want to get onto one of my rants about it, but has mutilated yoga into something that is very small. Yoga is the whole universe. Yoga is life. Yoga is everything. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for such a illuminating answer. Thank you.
Antonio, all the way from Italy.
Namaste, Dr. Sir. I take the chance just to go in a very practical question. I heard just yesterday that a friend of my wife, she is a lady of 65, was diagnosed a degenerative disease. This is Alzheimer, and I offer, and I'm going to offer to help her. And I think that although in this, let's say, tragic form of illness, as this comes from her mother has to fight 8 years with Alzheimer, and she at the moment is terrified about the consequence, the future. And I think this is a sort of stress that increased the stress, the sort of vertigo. I was thinking about starting with yoga. I have to say that this lady never do yoga in her life, but I think, and I'm looking for your opinion about that just doing some simple pranayama, such as Sukha Pranayama, Sukha Purvaka Pranayama, and Savitri Pranayama, and then go on, especially to get the possibility to do Kapalabhati, as I think Kapalabhati could have some sort of help in the process, as a sort of message, a sort of, and of course, what you told before, relaxation. Relaxation, I think, is the key point, and on this regard, in Gitananda tradition, we have a lot of beautiful, let's say, practice such as Kaya Kriya, that is very simple but very effective. So I would just your point on this, and I think there is illness or degenerative mental process couldn't be avoided, but we can slow down
Yes.
with the correct approach.
Very true. We may not be able to cure, but we can help them endure, is what V.K. Sayangarji used to say. But we can definitely retard the progression of such neurological illnesses. So we can try to slow it down for sure. I go with you on that. The practices chosen will depend on how much that person can do. So you would have to evaluate what the person can do, and then that would bring about it. I would add the Pranava and Brahmari and Brahma Mudra if possible, because they especially work on the central nervous system. But more important than all of this is to make sure that person is having a good support system in the family, in society, who don't say, oh, this person is not able to remember me, so it will not matter that I'm not with them. Please, we have to be very careful here. That is very important, that even if the person cannot remember who you are, you can remember who they are. And I think that humanistic approach is vital in these chronic degenerative conditions. That not to say that it doesn't matter if I don't see them because they don't know it. No, even if they don't know it, you know it. So helping the family, helping the friends to come and meet them, talk to them, share memories. The more you do that, the more you can mitigate the suffering. And I think this is very, very important, because as the disease progresses, the person may not remember who they are. They may not remember the family members. It can be very distressing for everyone. But I think if a yogic bhavana, an attitude is developed around the person, we can mitigate the suffering, we can enhance the healing, retard the progression for sure. And then with acceptance, miracles can also happen. Miracles will only happen when acceptance is there. Without acceptance, miracles cannot happen. So wish you all the best, Antonio, and looking forward to hearing back after you meet this person.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand sir, for answering the questions. And Dr. Bijlani sir, I request you to share your thoughts, please.
I would like to start with apologizing to Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani. I have known him for so long. How did it take us 2 years to invite him to speak on the Yes platform? But better late than never. I'm so glad that finally he has spoken, and it has been so late, not because of his saying no, because somehow we didn't invite him. Probably, no, sometimes it happens the one who is the closest to you, you don't think of him that much when you are inviting people for talks and so on. But now that the now that he has spoken today, I'm sure it will not be the last time. He'll speak again and again several times more. What a beautiful, deep insight you gave when you fitted the entire spectrum the from death or mortality to awareness of immortality and everything in between, which includes health and disease. What a beautiful and deep insight. And throughout, I found that there was spirituality at the same time. You were very practical. So it's very difficult to combine the two. On the importance of the immune system, which is a part of our healing system, and which has sort of been the bridge between the subjective and the objective, and made the acceptance of the yogic concepts easier by modern scientific medicine. That immune system or the healing system as a whole is something that during COVID I started calling our super personal protective equipment, the super PPE. Because the doctors were going around in the PPE, and even the others were told to use masks and things like that to protect themselves. And there was not somehow enough emphasis during those days on our own protective mechanisms, our own super PPE, which is inbuilt in us. And all the fear and the scare that was created during the pandemic, in fact, those who took it seriously suffered by weakening their own immune system. That dialogue between the patient and a person who was pre-diabetic was again very instructive and very typical. And that's why lifestyle advice cannot be given in 5 minutes. Theoretically, it can be. Walk for at least half an hour a day, eat this, don't eat that, stop smoking from tomorrow, and don't worry about anything. The lifestyle advice is over. But then what does the person think? The person thinks the doctor wants to take away everything that I love. He wants to take my happiness away for the sake of a disease which is not yet come. And that's why it takes longer. I mean, the type of program you have, or the type of program we developed in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, or the type of programs that Dean Ornish has. Now, these programs take a few days and spending a lot of time with the group as well as individual patients. That is required because what we are trying to do through these programs is show the person that the lifestyle that we are suggesting is not only healthier, but in fact can be more enjoyable than the one that you have been living so far. So once the person realizes that I can enjoy it, and we fit it into a philosophy that it's not just my body, my business. So if I'm ready to have the disease, what's your problem? If I'm ready to die early, what's your problem? I want to enjoy things. No, if that is the stand the person takes, the person realizes that I am in fact wasting and precious opportunity which I've got as a human being. And what the doctor is telling, once I see that that is how I can keep this equipment which has been given to me by the divine in good shape. Like, any good manager should keep the factory, all the machinery and the equipment in the factory in good shape, clean it, lubricate it, oil it, and so on, so that it keeps running for a long time. So that is what is expected of me. And not only that, the person starts feeling that many of the things that I have been loving so far are fleeting pleasures. And the person can easily give up something which is a fleeting pleasure for the sake of something which is much more long lasting. And the person can relate to it that, yes, I love to eat this such and such thing, but then how long that good taste last? Just a few minutes. And the dentists, in fact, tell me that it should not last even those few minutes. Try to rinse the mouth as soon as possible after you have eaten. Protect your teeth. So, just for those few seconds or few minutes of pleasure, uh, why should I uh, feed myself, which is not good for my body? So it's not just to escape the disease or to postpone death that I have to do it. I can substitute these small pleasures for something which is far more enjoyable. So then, when the person understands this over that few days program, and the person is a little more amenable to understanding it because of the disease, uh, then the person realizes that, yes, this is something that I feel like doing. So when the person wants to do something rather than has to do something just for escaping illness or death, uh, then the person is well motivated. Then, even the physical measures that it takes will be much more effective, because if the person is eating fruits and vegetables but is thinking of omelets and cutlets, then the good done by the fruits and vegetables can be more than neutralized by the harm done by the stress which he has because he's missing omelets and cutlets. So therefore, it's important that the person realizes through these programs which we give over a period of few days, rather than just do it in 5 minutes. Lifestyle advice in 5 minutes will not work. So if we do it properly, then the person is more likely to do it, and he wants to do it rather than has to do it, and that makes all the difference. I'm very happy that we have relatively young, at the same time highly experienced and competent physicians like Dr. Ananda Balayogi, uh, because doctors like him and me and others like Dane Ornish and Bernie Siegel, we are still considered a part of the lunatic fringe of the medical fraternity. But then we know somewhere deep within that the type of medicine that we are talking about is the medicine of the future. It has the power of truth behind it, and truth always endures. And sooner or later, it is likely to overtake medicine. And some of the hints are already there. The way we have moved from alternative and complementary to integrative, and the way, at least in one corner, as the spiritual well-being has been accepted by the WHO, although not included in the formal definition of health. But changes are taking place, and the type of medicine that we are talking about, this integrative medicine, is the medicine of the future. And with people like me who are on their way out, it's very encouraging to see that the future is very bright. We don't have to fear the future with people like Dr. Ananda Balayogi being around. So with that, I would like to thank him once again and request him to give many more talks. I'm sure he has a lot up his sleeves. And only recently I saw in the academia where he was talking about, where all his articles now I keep seeing, although I can't read all of them, but I know what all he is doing. So there was one on music and salutogenesis. So either on that or any other topic of your choice, maybe you can speak next time. And with that, thank you once again, and thank all the participants for being there uh, for this talk. And I'm sure many more will watch the recording on YouTube.
Thank you so much, Bijlani sir, for those kind words. Your words are always a blessing for me, and I hope to always be worthy of your love, your blessings, and maybe do the best we can to make the world a better place for all.
Thank you, sir. And before closing the session, I would like to inform as we mentioned, that the recording of today's session and all our Yes Talks are published on our YouTube channel, Yes Spirituality. Please do visit the channel and you'll find extensive content on yoga, education, spirituality, and related subjects like self-help and psychology. Anand sir, thank you so much once again for sharing your valuable time with all of us. Thank you, sir. And of course, we thank the participants for being with us today. We'll close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.